Are you still managing individuals when the modern world demands you lead a high-performing team? Welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're here because today we are going to do something a little different. We are going to deconstruct the very DNA of how we work together. We're going to take a deep, intellectual dive into a concept that sounds simple on the surface but is actually one of the most complex challenges any human being can face: building a high-performing team. We are looking at this through the lens of a business classic. Specifically, the Vietnamese edition of The 1-Minute Manager Builds High-Performing Teams by Ken Blanchard and his colleagues. Now, don't let the title fool you. This isn't just about management. This is about psychology. It's about sociology. It's about the fundamental shift in how human beings organize themselves to achieve the impossible. Let's start with the context. I want you to look at your calendar. Go ahead, mentally scroll through your week. How much of your time is spent alone, in a silo, doing a task that relies on absolutely no one else? Probably very little. Now, how much of your time is spent in meetings, on conference calls, on Slack channels, or collaborating on projects? If you are like most modern professionals, the research suggests that anywhere from 50 to 90% of your time is spent in group settings. And yet, and here is the paradox that kicks off our journey today, most of our training, most of our performance reviews, and most of our mental models for success are built around the individual. We are still operating with an industrial age mindset in a digital age reality. The authors call this the third revolution. If the first revolution was the hierarchical, top-down structure where the boss was the king and the workers were just hands, and the second revolution was the move toward management by objective, this third revolution is different. It is the realization that the world has become too complex, technology is moving too fast, and global competition is too fierce for any single, great man, or great woman, leader to figure it all out alone. The myth of the lone genius is dead. We have entered the era of the collective. So, the central thesis we are exploring today is this: the leader's job is no longer to be the smartest person in the room. The leader's job is to build a room that is smarter than they are. Our story begins with a character named Dan Brockway. Dan is a director of training. He's a guy who thinks he knows his stuff. He teaches management courses. He's teaching the old ways, how to supervise individuals, how to do one-on-one reviews. And then, he gets a phone call that changes everything. It's from a woman named Maria Sanchez. Maria isn't just a student, she's the catalyst for this entire intellectual journey. She tells Dan point blank, "Your training is outdated." Imagine that. You're the expert, and someone tells you that you're teaching history, not the future. She argues that because managers spend nearly all their time with groups, a manager's success shouldn't be measured by individual outputs, but by collective productivity. Dan is stunned. He calls the 1-Minute Manager, the wise protagonist of our story, looking for validation. He wants the 1-Minute Manager to say, "No, Dan, you're right, stick to the basics." But the 1-Minute Manager agrees with Maria. He admits that he used to be frustrated, burning himself out trying to supervise every single person directly, until he realized that he was spending less than 30% of his time on one-on-one supervision. He realized that if he couldn't lead a team, he couldn't lead at all. This brings us to the first major framework of our discussion. If we agree that teams are the future, what does a good team actually look like? We throw the word team around loosely. We call a department a team. We call a group of people in an elevator a team just because they're going to the same floor. But that's not a team. The 1-Minute Manager hands Dan a blueprint. It's an acronym, PERFORM. PRFORM. This is the diagnostic tool. If you are leading a group, or if you are part of a group, I want you to mentally score your team against these 7 characteristics as I walk through them. The P stands for purpose and values. This is the anchor. Does everyone know why they are there? Not just, "We are here to sell widgets." But the deeper mission. Are the values shared? A team without a shared purpose is just a crowd. The E is for empowerment. In Vietnamese, this is translated as Doc Teep Them Suc Man, adding strength. This isn't just a boss saying, I trust you. This is structural. Do the team members have the authority to make decisions? Do they have access to the data they need? Or do they have to ask for permission to buy a stapler? Empowerment means the ability to act. The R is relationships and communication. This is where the soft skills become hard skills. In a high-performing team, differences aren't just tolerated, they are viewed as assets. If everyone thinks exactly like the leader, you don't have a team, you have a cult. You need conflict, but you need respectful conflict. You need active listening. The F is flexibility. This is crucial in the modern era. Can the team adapt? If the market changes tomorrow, can the team pivot, or are they locked into the way we've always done it? In a high-performing team, leadership itself is flexible. Sometimes the manager leads, sometimes the specialist leads. It flows like water. The O is optimal performance. This is the bottom line. We aren't building teams just to feel warm and fuzzy. We are building them to produce. A high-performing team hits deadlines. They solve problems. They produce quality work. The R, the second R, is recognition and appreciation. Human beings run on validation. In these teams, success is celebrated. And it's not just the boss patting people on the back, it's peers recognizing peers. It's the feeling that your contribution matters to the whole. And finally, M for morale. If you walk into a room and the energy is dead, you don't have a high-performing team. Morale is that intangible electricity, the confidence, the enthusiasm, the pride. So that's the perform model. Purpose, empowerment, relationships, flexibility, optimal performance, recognition, morale. It sounds perfect, doesn't it? It sounds like a destination we all want to reach. But here is the catch. You cannot just snap your fingers and declare, we are now a perform team. It doesn't work that way. Building a team is an organic process. It's biological, not mechanical. And this leads us into the second part of our deep dive, the logic of development. The 1-minute manager explains to Dan that every team, no matter how smart the people are, goes through predictable stages. You cannot skip a stage any more than a child can skip being a teenager. And to navigate these stages, a leader needs 3 specific skills: analysis, adaptation, and empowerment. Let's focus on analysis for a moment because this is where most leaders fail. The 1-minute manager makes a profound distinction here between content and process. Content is what the team is doing. The agenda, the tasks, the decisions. Process is how the team is doing it. How are they talking to each other? Who is interrupting whom? How are decisions actually made? Is it a vote, or does the loudest person win? The authors argue that most leaders are obsessed with content. They are so focused on the work that they ignore the process. And when you ignore the process, you get dysfunction. You get the meeting after the meeting. You know the one. Where everyone nods in the boardroom and then goes out to the parking lot to complain about what just happened. That is a failure of process. To be a great leader, you have to become a master observer of process. You have to watch the communication flow. You have to sense the climate. You have to see the invisible rules that are governing behavior. Now let's apply this observational skill to the journey of the team. We are going to walk through the stages of development that Dan observes in the book. The journey starts at stage 1, orientation. Dan visits a meeting led by a guy named Ron Tillman. Now, Ron is a directive leader. He walks in, he sets the agenda, he tells everyone what to do. And the team? They are polite. They are listening. They are moderately enthusiastic, but there's an undercurrent of anxiety. This is the honeymoon phase. Think about the first day of school, or the first date, or the first week of a new job. Everyone is on their best behavior. Expectations are high, but realistic understanding is low. People are asking themselves, do I fit in here? Will I be accepted? What is expected of me? In stage 1, the team is dependent. They need the leader to define the reality. They need structure. And the 1-minute manager introduces a critical tool for this stage called the team charter. If you are starting a new team or rebooting an old one, you need a charter. This is your constitution. It defines the vision. How do we align with the company? It defines the purpose. Why does this team exist? And here the authors use a beautiful analogy, the story of the two stonecutters. You've probably heard it, but let's look at it through the lens of team building. A traveler asks two men what they are doing. The first man, looking miserable, says, "I'm cutting this stone to earn a wage." The second man, looking radiant, says, "I am building a cathedral." Stage 1 is about getting everyone to see the cathedral. It's about moving from job to purpose. The charter also defines the norms, the rules of the road. How do we handle conflict? How do we make decisions? If you don't write these rules down in stage 1, you will pay for it in stage 2. And speaking of stage 2, this is where the story gets really interesting. This is where the rubber meets the road. Dan leaves Ron's polite, structured meeting and goes to observe a team led by a manager named Susan. And it is a disaster. The meeting starts late. People are looking at their phones. And then, the conflict starts. A guy named Sam from sales starts yelling at the accounting department for messing up orders. Accounting fires back at ID. It's a shouting match. It's hostile. It feels like the team is falling apart. Dan is sitting there, shrinking in his chair, thinking, "This is terrible management. These people are dysfunctional." He goes back to the 1-minute manager and says, "Susan's team is a mess. They are angry. They are frustrated. It's a failure." And the 1-minute manager smiles and says, "No, Dan. That isn't failure. That is stage 2, dissatisfaction." This is the most critical concept I want you to take away from this episode. Conflict is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of growth. In management theory, this is often called storming. Why does it happen? Well, remember stage 1? The honeymoon? In stage 1, we had high expectations. We thought this project was going to be easy. We thought everyone was going to get along. In stage 2, reality hits. The task is harder than we thought. The person sitting next to you has annoying habits you didn't notice before. The goals seem unreachable. The gap between expectation and reality creates frustration. Now, the natural human instinct, and the instinct of bad leaders, is to suppress this stage. We want to say, "Hey everyone, calm down, let's be positive." We want to sweep the conflict under the rug. But the authors argue that you must go through the storm. You cannot get to high performance without passing through dissatisfaction. Why? Because this is where the real work happens. This is where polite masks come off and people start telling the truth. This is where diversity of opinion actually manifests. The leader's role here shifts dramatically. In stage 1, the leader was a director, telling people what to do. In stage 2, the leader must become a coach. You have to support the team emotionally. You have to help them resolve the conflict, not suppress it. You have to remind them of the purpose, the cathedral, while acknowledging that cutting the stone is hard work. You have to encourage them to air their grievances so that they can be solved. If a leader fails in stage 2, if they crack down too hard, or if they check out and ignore the conflict, the team will either disintegrate or they will stay stuck in stage 2 forever. We've all worked in those offices, haven't we? The toxic workplaces where the complaining never stops and nothing ever gets done. That is a team stuck in stage 2. But if you navigate it, if you hold the container, if you reaffirm the relationships, if you revisit the charter, something magical happens. The team starts to resolve its differences. They start to accept each other's strengths and weaknesses. They move into stage 3, which is integration, and finally, they arrive at the promised land, stage 4, production, or performing. To illustrate this, the 1-minute manager sends Dan to see one last team. This is the transportation department, led by a guy named Neil Henry. Dan walks into the room, and he's confused. He can't tell who the leader is. There are 15 people. They are debating, they are laughing, they are moving through the agenda with incredible speed. They are making decisions. Okay, let's do X. Who can handle Y? I've got it. Neil, the actual manager, walks in 10 minutes late. And nobody stops. They just wave at him, he sits down, and he joins the conversation like a peer. He doesn't take over. He doesn't command. Dan is amazed. He asks Neil, "How do you do this?" And Neil explains the paradox of high-level leadership. He says, "I have worked hard to make myself unnecessary." This is stage 4. This is the perform model in action. In this stage, the team has optimal performance. They have high morale. They have empowerment. The leadership in stage 4 is shared. The team is self-managing. The official leader doesn't need to direct, stage 1, or coach, stage 2. Their role shifts to delegating and facilitating. They are there to remove obstacles, to get resources, to interface with the rest of the company. They are the servant leader, in the truest sense. And this brings us back to the core argument of the book, and the lesson for all of us. The journey from the 1-minute manager, simply managing individuals, to the 1-minute manager, building high-performing teams, is a journey of letting go. It starts with the realization that the world is too complex for you to control everything, the third revolution. It requires a clear vision of what good looks like, the perform model. It demands the discipline to observe how people work, not just what they do, process versus content. And it requires the patience to guide a group of human beings through the anxiety of the beginning, the storm of the middle, and finally, to the synergy of the end. The book wraps up this section with a proverb that Dan recites. It's a Vietnamese proverb, and it sums up the entire philosophy perfectly. Asterisk. Mot ke lam chang nan nan, bia ke chum lai nan ha nui chow. Asterisk. Translation. One tree makes no forest, but 3 trees together make a high mountain. In the West, we might say, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. But I like the mountain imagery better. A single tree is vulnerable. It stands alone against the wind. It has limited reach. But 3 trees, a cluster, a grove, a team, they create an ecosystem. They create a mountain. They change the landscape. So, here is my challenge to you today. Think about the groups you are part of. Are you just a collection of individuals splitting stone? Or are you building a cathedral? Are you stuck in the politeness of stage 1, afraid to rock the boat? Are you drowning in the conflict of stage 2, thinking it's a failure? Or are you willing to do the hard work, the listening, the chartering, the storming, to get to stage 4? The third revolution isn't coming, it's here. The days of the solo hero are over. The future belongs to the team. And building that team? That is the most important work you will ever do. Thank you for listening. Go build your mountain.